The next component of the armor of God are shoes for your feet, the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. Now, of course, Paul's alluding to the Roman soldier who wore special sandals with straps around them that protected their feet while in battle. In fact, these sandals enabled the Roman soldier to advance on the enemy and attack the enemy's front without regard for what they were stepping on, be it rocks or thorns or sand of different kinds. And as I think about this idea of the people of God advancing in the armor of God, it strikes this image of evangelism for me. You know, your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. I'm convinced that God is calling us to be ready in and out of season for gospel encounters. I don't know about you, but in my experience, in seasons of warfare, sometimes God uses divine appointments, gospel encounters, where I have opportunity to represent God's love, truth, and power to someone who's far from Him. Even in the midst of my own season of warfare, when I have these gospel encounters, what I find is that I get reoriented, recalibrated to eternity and the things that really matter. It's like God lifts me higher and I get heaven's perspective from my life. And all of a sudden, my problems, as real as they are, seem small. As I get connected to God's heart and His desire for those who are far from Him to be close to Him. Recently, I had a divine appointment with an Uber driver, and I was in a funk, I'm not going to lie. Got into the Uber, and all of a sudden I began to feel God's heart for this young man. And I got stripped out of my funk. I got dialed into God's heart. An image, a vision came that kind of calibrated the direction of our conversation. I got to share my testimony with him, shared the gospel, the good news of Christ with him, all before he dropped me off at my destination. You know, I got out of that Uber thanking the Lord, full of joy, full of excitement for what God was doing in my city. And it didn't occur to me until the very end that, you know, God pulled me out of my funk, not through some spiritual prayer practice, but really through my feet being fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. Friend, I want to tell you something. In spiritual warfare, you're not on defense, you are on offense. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 16, "On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Gates are not offensive weapons. They're a defensive mechanism that's designed to keep the invading soldier out. And Jesus calls us, the church, the invading soldier, for whom the gates of hell will not prevail against. As we enter into people's lives with God's love, truth, power, inviting them to know Him. I want to encourage you today, wherever you're at on the spectrum of spiritual warfare and spiritual battle, get your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. Ask God for a divine appointment today where you can share His love, truth, and power with someone who's far from Him. I want to encourage you today, get your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace.